that writings could be forgotten or buried or burnt or destroyed, that cities could pass away. And what we see in Baghdad or Cairo or Samarkand is exactly the gathering together, translation, analysis, accumulation, storage, and preservation of material that they were well aware could be entirely lost forever.
And if there was one branch of knowledge that everyone, from the mighty caliph to the humble trader, wanted to preserve and enhance, it was medicine. These were, after all, times when few lived to old age. Writings from the time remind us that what we might consider a relatively minor infection today could be a death sentence. Religious teachings, then, were not just a source of comfort. They were a constant reminder that we should never give up.
In the Hadith, which is the collected sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, it says, "Ma anzala Allahu da'an illa wa anzala lahu dawa'an," which means that God did not send down a disease without also sending down its cure.
It's statements like this that lead Muslims, even today, to believe that cures for all diseases are out there somewhere, and that we need to search to find them. To assess how this optimism actually affected Islamic medicine, I met up with Dr. Peter Porman in the Syrian capital, Damascus. He's a leading expert on Islamic medicine who spends much of his time researching here in the Middle East.
What people don't realize is that the history of Islamic medicine is really the history of our medicine, because our medicine, the university medicine we used until the 19th century, it was based to a large extent on all this work of these Islamic physicians.
Islamic medicine built extensively on the foundations laid by the ancient Greeks. The most highly prized and among the first to be translated into Arabic were the medical manuscripts of the 3rd century Greek physician Galen.
Galen believed that a healthy body was one in balance, a balance of 4 types of fluids called humours, which circulate through the body, and any one of which, if out of balance, would cause illness and a change of temperament. The 4 humours were yellow bile, which, if in excess, would cause the patient to become bilious or bad-tempered and nauseous. Blood, too much of which would cause the patient to become sanguine or cheerful and flushed. Black bile, which in excess would cause the patient to become lethargic, melancholic, even depressed. And phlegm, which in excess would cause the patient to become phlegmatic or apathetic and emotionally detached. Galen argued that illnesses are caused by an imbalance in one of the humours, and so the cure lies in draining the body of some of that humour. And so he recommended techniques like cutting to induce bleeding or using emetics to induce vomiting.
But Islamic doctors were acutely aware that Galen and Greek medicine were only one source of medical knowledge. There were other traditions of medicine that they were equally keen to incorporate into their understanding of how the body functioned. Medieval Arabic texts refer to wise women, folk healers who provided medical drugs. This tradition continues today, as I found when I came across one for myself in the back streets of Hammamat in Tunisia. This is Arafat Nabil. She's been running her shop selling medicinal herbs and spices for over 20 years. She believes that her remedies can cure a wide range of medical ailments.
مثلا هذه عشبة اسمها شيح تنحى الدود من البطن، تنحي جميع الأوجاع الداخلية. بعد من الزرنيخ ينحي الثعلبة، وبعشبة هذه اللي تراها انت تويكا تنحي تقولوا البرص.
اوكي.
مثال هذوما مثلا كما هذه وهذه للصرع والجنون. صرع يحطها ويحط شويه في المخده نتاعو، ما عادش بك يشدوك الكريز هذاك.
وفي يعني مثلا من العصر اليوناني اقدم منها ما تستعمل ولا لو؟
والله ايش نقول لك، كل ما هو قديم في الاعشاب انا نتبعه. فهمتني؟ باش نزيد معلومات.
In the back streets of Tunisia, this knowledge is still being used. But medieval Islamic doctors were also aware of other traditions of medicine from China and India. And yet another tradition of medical guidance came from within Islam itself, and takes some of its ideas from the Quran and some from the collected sayings of the Prophet, the Hadith. In a bookshop in Monastir in Tunisia, I found a copy of a very popular book, available right across the Islamic world.
This book is called The Prophet's Medicine, and see how old it is. The author was born between 691 and 751 Hijri, which places him in the 14th century. Here's an interesting bit where it deals with the plague. فَإِذَا سَمَعْتُمْ بِهِ بِأَرْضٍ فَلَا تَدْخُلُوا عَلَيْهِ وَإِذَا وَقَعَ بِأَرْضٍ وَأَنْتُمْ بِهَا فَلَا تَخْرُجُوا مِنْهَا فِرَارًا مِنْهُ. It says, if you come across a land where the plague has come down, then do not enter that land. And if the plague comes down onto your land and you're there, then do not leave your homes in the hope of escaping it. So it sort of makes a lot of sense. But here's quite an amusing part. It deals with epilepsy. And it says that the Greeks, or Galen, believed that epilepsy originated in the brain. So, however, they were ignorant. They didn't realize the true cause of epilepsy, which is the possession of the body by evil spirits. And it talks about the cure for epilepsy being exorcism.
Hardly scientific. But Islam's most tangible contribution to medicine is less in its specific remedies and more in its overarching philosophy. It is, after all, a religion whose central idea is that we should feel compassion for our fellow humans. And accompanied by Dr. Peter Porman, I'm going to see a physical, bricks and mortar manifestation of medieval Islamic compassion. This is the Nur al-Din Hospital, the leading hospital of the Islamic Empire, built here in Damascus and now a museum.
This was built in the 1150s, 1154, I believe. One of the ideas which are stipulated in Islam is the idea to be charitable, and
yes,
charity,
zakah, yes.
Exactly, and an obligation to give alms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so, if you're a ruler or if you have a lot of money, what you could do is obviously
you could really be charitable,
and set up like a nice hospital like this one.
And within the hospital, Islam actively encouraged a high degree of religious tolerance, something we take for granted in modern secular society.
The hospital was open to all communities, so you would have Christians, you would have Jews, Muslims obviously, maybe other denominations, both as patients and also as practitioners. Like a Christian studies with a Muslim says my best student was a Jew, and so the medicine which was practiced here transcended religion.
I mean, typically, how many physicians would there be?
Well, it depends. Well, like for certain hospitals, we hear figures of like 24 or 28 physicians. Yes. The physicians would do the rounds in the mornings, you see, do their prescriptions and stuff like that.
Yeah, hasn't changed over the ages, yeah.
As a result of the translation movement, those physicians now became aware of the latest remedies from as far away as India and China. And as the new drugs filtered in from the rest of the world, hospitals started to set up a new kind of facility within their